Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Gotcha Force. Yeah, I know, a bit of a weird one. I have this thing that I do where I just lie in bed some nights and I go through the list of GameCube games I've got on my GPD Win 2 and I just boot one up at random. And this is the one that I picked last night and I played it for 2 to 3 hours because it's actually kind of interesting for multiple reasons, which we won't get into until we actually, start playing the game. So this is a GameCube game, if you couldn't tell by the video title, and I'm playing this on the Dolphin emulator. I'm not actually doing, real hardware, because I have no bloody way to capture that. But yes, I am playing this on an emulator, and it runs fine. I was playing this on my GPD Win 2, which was playing it at native resolution, and just no fancy extras, and it was running it at mostly 60 with stutters for shader compilation because that's what you do on low-end platforms. This is on my major PC running at 1440p with 2 times SSAA, so this should look fantastic by comparison, but the game's got a very sort of cel-shaded art style, which I actually really like. I say it's grown on me. I say it's lasted a lot. It's aged gracefully, is what I'm trying to say. So, we have a lot of things around here. Collection and trade and edit force we can do in the story mode, which leaves us with just the main modes, challenge, story, and versus. So, let's just go hop straight into the story. There is versus, which is 2-player local versus, but we won't worry about that because I'm a loner. And we can just hit continue on and we get dropped into the story pretty much straight away. And instead of going through the menus and such, because there's only one menu here, which is save and quit, we'll just go and pick a area and just beat the crap out of the gotcha borgs, which is the main force. There is a story to this game. Your spacebot fell from the sky and it's apparently from another world. It's kind of the plot to Transformers, only everything's really tiny and they don't transform, they're just like robots. That's pretty much it. So off we go. So some of this might look intensely familiar. So you have a series of different weapons for each Gotcha Force robot. There's a bunch of them, and your edit force is how you can actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Using edit force is how you can change what lineup of bots you have. And these weapons sometimes need to recharge, sometimes they don't. You move around using the left stick. You've got a dash button on the A button. And your weapons are usually mapped to B and X. You've also got a sort of rage meter that can go off when you hit the Y button when that meter in the top right is fully charged. And that just makes you a lot faster, makes your weapons reload instantly, and just you'll basically be wiping the floor with anything you so much as look at in that case. So, yes. Admittedly, using the boost button in this game is a little bit weird. You kind of have to do very specific flicks with the analog stick while also pressing the A button at exactly the same time. You can't just hold it like another very specific game that you might be thinking of. And there's nothing in the way of dash cancelling or anything like that. Game's actually kind of spastic if I'm being perfectly honest, because the action is just ridiculously fast. You could say almost that it's a faster Gundam Versus, because, well, fucking look at it. Honestly, I swear to God, that's basically exactly what this game is. It's kind of silly just how much it's duplicating the Gundam Versus formula. There are a couple of things about it that are different, but that's probably because this game came out in 2003. I ended up having to do a lot of research in order to actually figure out the deal behind Gotcha Force, because, honestly, it's just fucking Gundam Versus. There's a little bit more to it, but, man, it's so Gundam Versus-y, it's ridiculous. Let's just get into another fight before I get into that, though. So, you do get to pick your partner from time to time, but that basically just determines what bots the AI use. You can also select a different force. We're just going to go with this one because, well, that's the one I've got set up. We'll edit a force after this battle, just to show you what that is and what it's like. But it appears the bots they picked for us are well, they're quite similar this time, unfortunately. But anyway, you can use the L and R buttons to swap your lock on. You can also use the Z button to lock onto your friendlies. There are some bots that will let you heal up your AI teammate, but honestly, in a game like this, it seems kind of unnecessary. You'll probably just get the shit shot out of you for trying, considering it's 2-on-2. Just like Gundam Versus. But anyway, as I was saying, I had to do some research after I played this game, because I swear to God, I picked this entirely randomly. It's not just because I really like Gundam Versus or anything. This is just the game I booted up. And after I went and did my research, things made a lot more sense. You see, this game was made by Capcom, not Bandai. And that kind of confused me at first, because I'm like, what relationship does Capcom have to fucking Gundam Versus? Well, as it turns out, the first Gundam Versus game, Federation vs. Sion, I think I've got that right, was originally an arcade-only game back in 2001, and was developed by, surprise, surprise, Capcom! So yes, they do actually have a little bit of history of working on the series. And not only that, but the designer of not only Federation vs. Sion, but also Gotcha Force, all the way up to the original Extreme Versus, I didn't research any further than this, because, well, I didn't really see the point, was, wouldn't you believe it, the same guy. So, the same guy who made Gundam Versus is also directly responsible for this, which makes everything make a hell of a lot more sense, although at the same time it also made slightly less sense to me, because I've never actually played any of the Gundam Versus games outside of the Gundam Extreme Versus on PlayStation 3 and Gundam Versus on PlayStation 4. I never picked up any of the PSP ones, as far as I remember. So I went and looked them up, and the Federation vs. Sion games were actually really damn slow. Like, they were almost comparable to Gundam Battle, if you've played Gundam Battle before. Alright, so now that I've died, I move on to the next Gotcha Force bot in my lineup, which is this guy. He has dual revolvers, and his double shot there is actually a pretty highly damaging one, but let me just put it this way. I put my G Red, which is the best bot you get at the start of the game anyway. I put him at the back of my roster, more or less, because he's ridiculously OP and actually really good. So we will probably be seeing him eventually, but yeah, he's so ridiculously good that if I had him out front, I would basically lose with him. We'll get to that, but yeah. The older Versus games were more or less comparable to Federation, more or less comparable to Gundam Battle, like Gundam Sea Battle Destiny, if you remember that game from however long it was ago. Or, have I done? No, I haven't put up my video on Gundam Assault Survive yet, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, basically it was so slow, it was comparable to those games. Alright, come on, you can take me out now. What the fuck is he doing? Oh, I have a bad feeling about this. I'm stuck. Oh, no, I'm not. There I go. Okay, now let's get the G-Rad out and really show these bastards what we can do. But yeah, when you compare the slower speed of, like, the first set of Versus games, like Federation vs. Sion, then you compare this game, which came out at roughly the same time, it was like 2 years later, things start making a lot more sense, because this game definitely has some of the speed that Gundam Versus is known for, but it also kind of went overboard, because I say this game is spastic, and I'm not even kidding. The best way to play this game is to play it like you're on a speedball, like you never stop moving, you're just constantly firing away, you don't put too much effort into dodging because enemy attacks and your attacks come out so quickly that dodging is kind of pointless. But if you think of this game as a sort of prototype for what Gundam Versus could become, it makes a lot more sense in that sort of worldview, and I actually really appreciate that because it gives you just an idea of what could have been and what eventually did happen. But anyway, this is your Edit Force screen. Now, at the end of every mission, you have a random chance to get a new G-Bot, and these are all the G-Bots I have here. I already have a couple, like you've seen the Revolver Gunman and the Battle Girl already. I have a extra Revolver Gunman here. They are gacha, as far as I can tell. It's randomly determined what ones you get, which is kind of unfortunate. I would have liked the ability to turn those scores you get at the end of every mission into, like, money I could use to spend on more of these bots, because Right now, most of the stuff I have is completely useless, except for the G-Red and maybe a couple of the higher cost ones. And as far as I can tell, cost doesn't actually mean anything. It might get you a higher score to use lower cost, but, well, whatever. But yes, you can pick up a dude here and set it down here, and you can hit a button to see his statistics, which is kind of neat. And you can do that with every sort of bot you've got. And you can even see their attacks and a little bit of stats on them. It'd be neat to have something like this in the Gundam Versus game, just quickly accessible like this, just in case you're wondering what a cool bot would be, but whatever. We'll take him out because your total cost and your total cost just in general, really. Every battle you do, it goes up. Sometimes it goes up by a massive amount, depending on, like, the importance of the battle that you're doing. Like, it could go up by 100, it could go up by 10 if you're playing just a regular battle, though. So there is a reason to go and play those little battles off to the side. But yes, you select what bots you want to do here, and you move them in and out, and you try and stay under or over cost. We'll take the normal samurai, put in there, and just shift it backwards like that so that we don't have the G-Red coming in and just wrecking face all too often. Yeah, there we go. We're at exactly our cost limit, which is really nice. So if we just hit start, it will take us back out here. You can have multiple forces, and there's like tons of space. You get like 300 slots for bots. I went and looked up a game guide for this, and whoops, wrong button. I'm playing on a PS4 pad, so I'm still kind of used to certain things. But yeah, cooperate with Tsusomu to protect the school. It's very Japanese. They don't try and hide it. I wouldn't be too upset if the school was gone. But yeah, okay. But yeah, you get tons of room for bots, and they all have different movesets. And most of them are kind of like Gundam Versus. You can see some of the inspiration taken from Gundam, and you can see some of the inspiration for attacks that would come up later on in Gundam. So, you know, it's really interesting, actually. Like, how did they get away with this? I'm not entirely sure, but it's just kind of neat in the grand scheme of things to have things be like this, you know? But yeah, there are tons of individual bots. There's like 140 unique ones, but I believe there are ones that are more or less just like color recodes. So, you know, like there's still like, I imagine at least 50 unique ones here. And you do have the ability to play this game in versus mode, which will make things interesting. Now, it's not the best competitive game because there's basically nothing in the way of iframes. It's very easy to knock people over and keep them there. And, you know, once you get like one good combo on a dude, it's over. It does pertain to the Gundam rule, where if you do a combo, the more hits you have in that combo before they have an opportunity to get back up and reset their iframes, well, that gives them less damage overall in the entire combo. So massive combos don't benefit you so much, but when you're talking about bots like these, which have tiny amounts of health and take massive damage, it doesn't matter as much. So just the overall ridiculousness of the game doesn't lend itself too well to competitive play. And there's also a couple of things which I really don't appreciate, like, I'd like to be able to do projectile attacks while I'm close to the enemy. In this game, if you get too close to the enemy and hit your B button, you will start doing a melee attack. There's no, like, selectable option or anything along those lines. Like, you can see this guy here has got a pretty similar set of moves to the last one. He's got that neat little spinny move there, but, I mean, his other move is almost identical and all that. And yeah, trying to actually boost in this game is a bit weird. Just, you know, little minor things like that that would obviously be tweaked later on that would make Gundam Versus incredibly competitive as a series, as a franchise. You know, that's all well and good. That's all fine. Like, I got no problem with the way things are in the future, but right now they're not particularly great. But there are people who absolutely love this game because For some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why this was a thing. Well, I know, like, the game got a cult following in Japan. People actually really like it there. And, you know, that's okay. That's fine. A lot of games get cultural followings in Japan. That's just the way it works, and, you know, whatever. They like what they like. With that being said, though, the game got a reprint in 2012. 2012, like, this is... 2012 is the year the Wii U came out, wasn't it? How strange is that? I mean, in comparison to something like Yakuza 1 and 2 getting a reprint in like 2012 or whatever, because, you know, the original system to play it wasn't around, but at least you can still play it on like every Wii U and every Wii in Gotcha Force's case. So it's just that little bit strange, I gotta say. Still, it's kind of neat that the GameCube game got a reprint in 2012. People were hoping that meant there was going to be a sequel to it, but considering that the game designer for Extreme Versus was probably working non-stop at Bandai at that point, yeah, that probably wasn't going to happen. Oh look, we got a G-Bot. What is it? It is a Hatchet Knight with a gigantic axe. Is that a hatchet? I don't think that's what a hatchet is supposed to look like. Seems like a mistranslation more than anything else. Alright, let's get that hatchet bot in here, though. Let's give him a try. He's 490 cost, holy shit. Alright, yeah, out you come, Mr. Normal Samurai. We still got 150. Enough for a normal ninja, I suppose. Let's just move him back towards the end there. Close enough. Right, so let's go and do another one of the... Wrong button again. God damn it. Let's go and do another one of the red exclamation points. They're usually bigger battles. The voice acting in this game is absolutely terrible, by the way. Most of the kids sound like they haven't gone out of Pampers yet. I fought against the commander of the Death Force, Orochi, and he sounded like he literally just got off toilet training. He was stupid young, like way too young to be commanding an army of death robots. But there you go. Holy crap, this guy is slow. Really not going to help you out in this game, I've got to say, where it's incredibly important that you have at least a decent ranged melee attack, but... Well, I guess that is decent, but the game does actually have friendly fire, so, you know, you've got to be careful of that. Well, you've got to be charging this the entire damn time. This makes it... Man, this guy's cost must be to offset the fact that this is incredibly overpowered, because he would be very hard to use in the grand scheme of things. Although I guess a gigantic spinny attack, which takes out pretty much everything around you, would make you pretty powerful either way in a game like this. Especially if you're being attacked by any sort of melee person whatsoever. So, yeah, I can see the room for, like, strategic depth in outlining your, strategic depth in outlining the sort of force that you've got going to make sure that you've got a decent setup of ranged and melee attackers and swapping between them depending on the enemy force you're going to be facing. And the game does tell you about this. The game will absolutely tell you what you're about to fight, whether it be death bots or, in the case of the other mode you haven't got to yet, exactly what enemy units you'll be fighting, so you'll at least have an idea of what you should be taking along. But yeah, the ridiculous speed and just like overall ease of the game too. Like, the game is really simple in a certain sense, like being able to just stay out of the way of most. The only fights I've lost so far in like 2 hours and like 20 something missions are fights that I was supposed to lose. As in fights that I was guaranteed to go in and lose basically no matter what. So yeah, the game is pretty simple. The overall speed and the fact that it was probably meant to appeal to kids as well means that they probably couldn't do too much in the way of, like, Gundam Versus level of difficulty with the bots. I mean, even then with like skilled players, they would absolutely wipe the floor with like regular ones. But you get what I mean. Even the harder AI bots would be kind of hard to deal with in this sort of thing. I should probably use my As you can see, I'm reloading shit instantly, and I am able to fire out a big stream of them, and I do way more damage. But yeah. Considering the overall pace of the game, and some of the things they came up with, like iframes being nearly non-existent while you're getting up, making combos really easy, and just the general ease of the difficulty otherwise makes it so that it really does feel like it really does feel too easy for its own good. That's what I'm trying to say. With that said, let's save and quit. Now that we've built up a decent force, we can actually go and have a look at the other mode now. You need to play a couple of hours of the story mode in order to actually tackle the challenge mode. For those of you who are familiar with Gundam Extreme Versus, the energy system makes sense to you. And these are your 3 difficulties for what is basically this game's arcade mode. It will give you a series of 5 fights. You can play them in co-op. And you just have to go through and survive and get to the very end. You'll fight bosses at the very end. You'll see a lot more unique ones. And you will... yeah, you'll just have plenty of opportunities. Let's get rid of him. As cool as his attacks are, he's going to be pretty much useless to me. We'll get the claw robot in here, though, on the very end of the thing. Oh, we can take all of them. We can pretty much take all of them at this point. Well, let's not take him. We'll take the normal samurai as our... We'll move him to the end. 250. Yeah, we only have 90 left, and I've got most of my good guys in here, so yeah, that ought to do the trick. Yep, just a giant wave of Death Force robots to start with. That's how this always goes. Oh yeah, this bitch, right. Another entirely melee-focused character. Thankfully, she's not incredibly slow though, so... As I said before, the game's gorgeous, even on... I mean, this game would have looked gorgeous even on, like, the original hardware. But I mean, man, it just... The art style they've gone for here, I should say, still holds up. It looks fantastic. Even things like texture quality, even on a like a lower internal resolution in the emulator, looks great. There's nothing wrong with the way the game looks at all. And other than the voice acting being utter garbage, I mean, there's not much wrong with the sound either. Obviously, it's like a bit much when they start pulling out tons of robots at the same time, but outside of that, the game sounds, just as in its soundscape, its sound effects and its music, absolutely fine, although it's very clearly meant to appeal to kiddies, and sometimes might go a little too far, but for me personally, it's not that big a deal. Hell, I'm playing the game muted right now, I don't really care that much. Whoa, Jesus, what happened there? Oh, it's just them going into their equivalent of rage mode. Well, where are you? There you are. So, bomb, another bomb, another bomb, another bomb, another bomb. See what I mean about your iframes basically not lasting at all? Because as soon as they're up, they can get hit again. And the same thing applies to you as well. So yeah, don't be like me. Don't go for the melee attack. Although when they're that close, you really don't have a choice in the matter. Somehow managed to completely miss them and hit my teammate with that volley. That was almost impressive. The annoying thing about this mode is that it would be great if, like, for every fight you won, or even just, like, for finishing the thing, you'd be guaranteed a decent bot, because as I said before, there is, like, a collection screen that shows you the overall rarity of everything you've got so far, and in this game, in this mode, I should say, you get no rewards for winning, which is kind of disappointing, because considering that a good run-through of this mode can easily take several minutes, in comparison to just playing the story mode, where you can earn a new bot like every couple of fights. It's just kind of disappointing in that sense, especially since they have to load your robots from the memory card, so at least they can give you a, you know, a decent leg up on that sort of thing to begin with. So it's kind of disappointing in that sense. It would be nice to be able to just play this mode over and over again to earn a bunch of bots to help you out through the story mode if you need it. But then again, the story mode in this game is designed to be replayable because, as I said, as I was looking up the guide, I found some of the unlockable rewards. And you have to beat the game 10 times in order to get every, like, recolored version of the G-Red bot that you start with. And that's just kind of silly. That seems like a pretty over-the-top amount of... That seems like a pretty over-the-top amount of replays. I mean, the story mode doesn't have that many missions. Like, I was up to mission 20 after a couple of hours, and it's only like 50. So it's not like there's that many things to be doing in that mission, but in that story mode. So it's not like replaying it like 10 times is going to take you 100 hours or something, but I gotta say, it's a little much. And the performance seems absolutely fine too. My recording seems to be slowing down a little bit, and it's dropped like 5 seconds worth of frames, but I haven't noticed any sort of frame dropping in this footage whatsoever, like in this game, actual game, so it's just the recorder being a bit shit. I apologize for that. It's a problem I've been having a lot lately, and I'm trying to figure out how to sort it out. I've closed everything that's in the background of this computer, and it only got turned on like 2 hours ago, so it shouldn't be like stressed out or anything like that. And yes, they do make these fights harder as they go on. So it's not like you're just fighting against the same ones every time. And we'll get to see a bunch of the different robots and their movesets as well after the first fight, which is nice. Because I don't have that many, I can't show them off. They're all pretty simple to get a hang of because, again, children's game, they kind of made it too hard for obvious reasons, but still. It's nice to have a decent amount of variety. And I appreciate that the game lets you bring along like 5 or 6 different robots to the one fight, so you're not being constantly stuck with the same one. The upside to Gundam versus matches is that they're usually quite short. You only have 1 or 2 bots that can realistically die before the match ends, unless you're doing something incredibly stupid, like flying nothing but like Titans, like the Mark II Titans, which is only like 1,000 cost. If you're doing something stupid like that, then yeah, the battles are going to last a fair amount of time. But in this case, it's nice to be able to just swap out bots and have a decent amount of variety going for you. Boy, this attack reminds me of something that gave me fucking PTSD fighting in bloody Gundam Versus, I gotta tell ya. But really, I don't have a problem with Gotcha Force. I mean, there are obviously things about it that I would change. I'd try to slow down the pace just a little bit, maybe tune up the controls a little. You know, and more variety in the form of more characters isn't bad, but I'm basically describing Gundam Versus at that point. So... Okay, they've gone full, oh god. Oh no, run. Must run away. Yeah, pick on him. Pick on him. That's a good tactic. Good tactic. Oh god, I got caught by this thing again. Son of a bitch! Give me something with guns, please. Thank you. So yeah, as a fan of Gundam Versus, being able to see where some of the kinks were ironed out, and just some of the ideas that they had in the past come out in such a weird circumstance is really interesting to me. I really like having had the opportunity to play it. As for whether I'd recommend you play it over, say, an actual Gundam Versus game is debatable, just because the later Gundam Versus games basically do this game shtick, but way better, just due to the idea of having had years to refine the concept. Oh god, it's this guy's turn. He's got giant missiles! He's got giant missiles! Multiple giant missiles! Like the gun girl only had one giant missile, but holy shit, he has 4! Actually, this reminds me of something. Isn't this a lot like the power loader from Aliens? I admit I haven't seen Aliens, but I've seen memes of Aliens, and that's enough to know what the power loader is supposed to look like. But then again, they were already ripping off a bunch of, like, well, I mean, maybe not even ripping off, but still, they were using a lot of Gundam Extreme Versus designs, or basically just Gundam Versus Gundam designs at this point, in order to make this game happen. So, who knows, maybe this game was the inspiration for that, but at the same time, maybe they were just ripping off other things like the power loader from fucking Aliens. But okay. Like, whatever. It's like 16 years since this game came out. Let it go. If they didn't care then, they're not going to care now. Especially since you can't fucking buy Gotcha Force anymore, so... It's alright, we've still got G-Red in the wings, so even if this guy goes down, G-Red can come and help us out. As I said, the game's pretty easy, even with like a... This team isn't really very optimized. I just tossed in everything I had and I'm still doing alright, so... Oh yeah, now he's pissed. I don't want to spend mine, because yeah, one hit from death. Alright. Now that I've got the G-Rat out, now I'm pissed. Come here. Come on, try it. Just give me an excuse. Give me an excuse to fill you full of plasma bursts. So weird. I'm so used to trying to do like the shot, cancel, shot, cancel, shot, cancel, shot, cancel from Gundam versus Gundam, and it just doesn't work here because it doesn't work in the same way. So it's a little bizarre just trying to do that. We'll make this the last battle because doing this plus another 2 battles is probably going to take like an hour, so I've already said pretty much everything I want to say. It's a good game, but an outdated one by its own bloody designer in another series for like some bizarre reason I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around. Like why, what? I mean, even like at the end of a battle where the camera like does the slow motion thing over the enemy that just died and then does the quick pan to the person who dealt out the final shot. That's identical to fucking Gundam versus Gundam. That's identical to Extreme Versus, so it's just so bizarre. Is it running on the same engine? It might even be running on the same engine. I mean, I imagine it is, considering how close they got that. I don't think that's just a coincidence, but... Well, we'll never know these things, will we? I mean, it's considered a cult classic in Japan, and I can see why, and that's some pretty good praise, at least in my personal opinion. Considering that they reprinted the game nearly a decade after it originally came out, well, yeah. It's clearly got some redeeming value to it. But it's just a bit too fast, a little bit too clunky, and again, being basically outdone by the same designer's efforts a few years later makes it kind of irrelevant, but I really appreciate being able to go back and see something just so fucking weird completely randomly. Like, I hadn't even looked up this game. Like, my process for getting, like, a list of games to stick on my GPD Win 2 to try out later was more or less, is it on the V's recommended games wiki? Is it on a generally considered to be one of the best games of all time? Put it on there. Or one of the best games for the platform of all time, I should say. Put it on there. And that's pretty much what I did. And well, I guess some of these times you just get lucky. Honestly, I'm probably going to lose this fight. So, like, I was pointing towards him there, but man, the reaction times on these bots can be slow sometimes, especially when you've got dudes that can do shit like that. And it feels like you've got no ability to respond. Like, these ones are weird. Like, it seems like all the melee focus bots, or at least most of them, only have like 3 dodges in them before they have to hit ground and come back, like no matter what they do. It's so strange. So I love how this girl's basically just got like an Uzi. Not to mention a silenced Uzi, but it fires 5-round bursts, which makes no sense. But okay, like, sure. You know what, maybe I should be doing this. What the fuck am I doing? I mean, I can just build up another rage mode again later, so I don't see what I'm doing. Oh, dodge that. Oh look, another angel. Brilliant. And this just makes me want to go play Gundam Versus again, but it's disappointing because, like, Gundam Versus Force is the only Gundam vs. Gundam series game that I know of that has a decent story mode, and it's the most hated out of the lot of them. So, yeah, it would be nice to have an actual port of, like, Extreme Versus 2 or whatever that has a proper story mode in it and not just an arcade mode. You know, just for something to do. Because as neat as just, like, going up against the AI is, it would be neat to have a more story-focused mode, or at least something that, you know, gives you unique challenges and stuff like that. I mean, I guess Gundam Versus on PS4 kind of had that, didn't it? But, man, I wish that game came to PC. That game would have looked so good in 4K 120. Although it's a fighting game, so chances are it never would have got beyond 4K 60, but, you know, that's just the things we have to live with. That was a complete and utter miss. And this guy's really good at fucking dodging all these shots. There we go. Smack. Oh god, what is that thing? Kinda reminds me of, that thing kinda reminds me of the Bonds machines in Mega Man Legends. Weird thing to be reminded of at this point, I know. But, that's a thing, I suppose. Ow. Gotta be really careful with some of these attacks, because they have some sick wind-up time. No charge attacks on this guy, unfortunately. I did some damage to him, at least. Alright, we're down to him. Might as well go full blast, especially on a guy this slow. Just finish him off. This is why guns are very important in this game, children. Then again, this guy's doing a really good job holding him off with just melee. No, I might actually win this. It's gonna be close. Because oh no, my ally's still here. He's probably just down to his weakest unit at this point. That beam that shoots out of his hand is actually anti-air too, so if you can hit him with both, it's brilliantly strong. There we go. It was close, but I got there in the end. Battle 4. Battle 5 would be against a boss, but they're basically just really big, have instant kill attacks, and just aren't that interesting to fight in comparison, so... Just like regular Gundam Versus, but there you go. That was a look at Gotcha Force. Really interesting historical relic, and if you really want to learn about how the Gundam vs. Gundam formula evolved over time, this would be a great place to go back and have a look. But if you're just a casual fan of these kinds of high-speed robot action games, you're probably better off going with a Gundam Versus title, whether it be Gundam Versus on the PS4, Gundam Extreme Versus on the PS3, Gundam Extreme Versus Force on the Vita, you know, stuff like that. Hopefully they'll bring out a Gundam Versus game that isn't like a downgraded Western release like Gundam Versus was designed to be, because let's be honest, it was. That seems to be a thing with Bandai Namco lately when it comes to the Gundam games, although it's not so much lately, where they make a downgraded version of the same series in order to release it overseas. Like, they didn't do it with Super Robot Wars or SD Gundam, but they did it with Gundam Breaker because they have Gundam Breaker Mobile now, which is like Gunpla Battle, Gundam Warfare or something in the West. And then there's Gundam Versus, which had Gundam Extreme Versus over in Japan, but for whatever reason they just had to make an entirely new one from scratch just to appeal to the West, because reasons? I don't fucking know, but anyway, this video's done. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.